This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live, coming to you live from Palm Beach, Florida, which is in the free state of Florida, which is designed based on the theories and principles of our founding fathers: limited government, respect for the rights of people, frugal as much as possible government. The budget here is more than half the budget of New York State, for example, which has 3 million less people to govern. So when I was finishing on the Rudy Giuliani show, I was pointing out the article by Matt Taibbi. I think it's Taibbi's article that I got this from back on Sunday. But he has an interesting, after pointing out how much money these colleges are sucking in, and that they are largely supported by the federal government. He says there's a whole area that we don't know about called the hidden reserves. A student loan activist and presidential candidate, Alan Collinge, pointed out that the school, meaning we're talking about Columbia, is sitting on a $3.7 billion undesignated cash reserve. That's in addition to their $14.8 billion endowment. And they're taking in $13.5 billion from $14.8 billion is the endowment, and the undesignated cash reserves of $3.7 billion. And then in many of these colleges, these undesignated cash reserves, there is no accounting for the hidden cash reserves. And the only revelation of that was a mix-up in the state of Wisconsin, where billions in additional reserves came out that weren't accounted for. So we really want to look into that. But this college thing is a scam, but a scam of massive proportions, $1 billion scam, where, again, like with the Communist Teachers Union, the education of the kids has nothing at all to do with Harvard or Yale, or as Ted and I were vindicated when we made our judgment last year that Columbia was the biggest hater of Jewish people of any university in America. It came down to a tie between Harvard and Columbia, and we settled that tie with picking Columbia, and now Columbia is the first one that's had to fork over big amounts of money to the federal government. Also, is going to live under a federal injunction as to people can't wear masks. There has to be discipline for people who engage in hate, in active hate, not just speech. It's not hate speech; it's hate actions. It's first of all, a university is a private. It's a private institution. It has to have certain rules that would be different than just on the street, because it is trying to focus everybody on education. I mean, the reason a university has a campus, and the reason the campus theoretically is cloistered in some way from everything else, is because education has to take place with a little quiet around it. There has to be some time for reflection. I remember when I was going to law school, some of the professors would say, when we would say that some of these courses don't seem necessary, and, I'm going to be a trial lawyer, why do I need to learn property? This is the only time you're really going to have for learning, because once you get into the real world, it's going to be work, and practical. This is the time you have to develop a broad base from which you can figure out legal issues. Because if a lawyer is a narrow specialist, he's a terrible lawyer. As a prosecutor, I probably dealt with every area of the law at one time or another. and had to know it. And I was very, very glad that I got a very broad-based legal education in many things that had nothing to do with my specialty. I'm sure good doctors would tell you the same thing, because good doctors find it amazing when I go to a specialist and I talk about some other issue and the doctor is able to really analyze it so well. But this effort that the president is making against universities in trying to fix them is so important. I mean, the reason we're in the shape that we're in is because many of our citizens, particularly in the blue states and the horribly deteriorating blue cities, are brainwashed. They're brainwashed either because of education or because of the media. Well, both are controlled by Marxists completely. They've inundated it with Marxist ideas, Marxist theories. They teach in universities what a terrible place America is. So they will. That has to be fixed if we're going to fix America. There's nothing wrong with saying that the schools should teach your kids to be loyal, good Americans, and to love this country. This country deserves to be loved. You love your children, correct? That doesn't mean that everything your children do is right. And it doesn't mean you're going to make them feel like everything they do is right. They have to have a moral compass. Occasionally, they have to be corrected. Occasionally, they have to be taught not to do something, that it's wrong. Well, the same thing is true of our country on a much larger scale. Just because we're a country that deserves to be loved and we're the greatest country on earth doesn't mean we're a perfect country. But that's what's missing. What's missing is we come at it the other way. We take whatever mistakes you can find in our history. We then add many, many others that are absolutely false and untrue. We then exaggerate them beyond all proportion. And then we make this country like it's some awful place, which, of course, is completely inconsistent with reality, because our biggest problem is too many people want to come here. So these people somehow are subliminally getting the fact that this is the greatest country on earth. These two efforts, straightening out the courts and straightening out the universities, along with straightening out the public schools, deconstructing them, straightening out the courts means going back to our system of justice, and then seeing what can be done about the media delivering a much more broad-based message, and finally making sure that this is dealt with in a way that rebuts the unbelievable, unrelenting effort to demonize. I mean, now it's turned to Musk, and what's being done to Musk is outrageous. I mean, this is a Ted. They get worse and worse. The Democrats. I mean, they started all this with something it couldn't be much worse. They started it with a frame-up, a multi-million-dollar frame-up, which was first used to stop him from being president.
That's right.
And then used as a really a form of treason.
Right.
A way of getting him out of office on a paid-for false story that Hillary paid for, and who knows how many others put money into. And they all were part of it. Obama, Biden, her, they all knew about it.
Right.
And the FBI, they corrupted the FBI. So you thought, boy, once that was solved, it wasn't going to get it would get better. Well, it got worse. They then made up the totally phony story about Ukraine.
Right.
That was disproved by the readout of the conversation, but didn't matter. Then the hard drive came out that proved that everything he was saying and everything I was saying was true and almost understated, because we didn't know all of it. Like, for example, what I brought you originally without the hard drive was Ukraine. I had it all of that. 12 witnesses, a case. I could have prosecuted him and put him in jail for the rest of his life for all the bribes he took in Ukraine. But I only had rumors about China. The hard drive solidified all of that. So now we get $30 million to his family from one of our biggest enemies, $3.5 million from Russia, and all the money from Ukraine, and the statement from Hunter Biden that I've been paying him half my income for 30 years. So it's hard to get worse than fixing that, getting those 51 prostitutes who really shouldn't just be stripped of their security. They should be sitting in a federal penitentiary. So then they manipulate January 6th. And you're going to find out much more about that as we have time to cover it. That's a production of the Pelosi Insider Trading Company. They used that insider trading thing because that gave them the money to do movies. And then when that didn't work, they did the most unbelievable persecution of a candidate of the other party ever, with 4 prosecutions, none of which made any sense at all, in 1 year, which is impossible to do, and only was done for the purpose of defeating him, not to prosecute him, and no court stepped in. The Chief Justice, whose big mouth, who shot off his big mouth a week ago about you can't impeach federal judges, didn't seem to think it was wrong to frame a presidential candidate of the opposition party 4 different times in 4 different jurisdictions, just coincidentally on the year that he's running for president. He didn't see any problem with that. Or how about convicting somebody, never actually convicting them of the crime? A multiple choice conviction that wasn't unanimous. John Roberts is the only Chief Justice going back to before the Magna Carta that ever presided over a country, over an American or English country that did that. So it keeps going on and it gets worse. Now it's getting to real violence. I mean, they did everything to him that they could do, including, as I am Bernie Kerik warned him a year before, they may try to kill you. Now they go right to violence. Musk, in my case, and in Navarro's case, and Bannon, even J6, it's put us in jail. But now it's, let's burn up his business, let's burn up his cars, let's kill his people. I mean, and the media doesn't react to it at all. It's like, this is normal.
That's right.
It's normal what is the justification? All Musk is doing is finding unjustifiable expenses in government, raising it. The president has to make the decisions, not him. He can't cut anything. All he can do is say, look, I just found $50 million, and it doesn't seem like they actually bought any condoms with it.
That's right.
I find $50 million, but no evidence of a condom purchase.
That's right, Mayor. Mayor, what would you do in this situation? What would you do, I guess, if you were heading up DHS, for example, and these attacks against Tesla continued? As recently as this morning, a pair of bombs were found inside a Tesla location, I believe, in Austin, Texas.
I would put together a task force and take out. I kind of do what Bernie and I did in Mexico City. In Mexico City, we had to start with nobody trusted anybody in the police department. So we had to reconstitute the police department. We sat down with a pencil and paper, and we talked to people we could trust. And we put together about a group of about 100 police officers that we could trust. And then we got it up to 500, and we began all the important investigations with them. And we paid them extra money, so they didn't have to take bribes. They wouldn't be tempted to take bribes. And that also encouraged other police officers to think, maybe I shouldn't take bribes. Well, we got crime down 12 and 14% until we were fired because we were successful. Because the cartels run Mexico. Sheinbaum seems like she's a good woman and she wants to change it, but don't really think she runs it. And what she's doing now, she's taking a big risk with her life there.
Right.
So what I would do is I'd go pick out of the federal law enforcement establishment, with a heavy emphasis on the FBI, the ones who didn't participate in the garbage, the ones who were well known for having opposed it, There have to be some hidden heroes that said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to dress up like a Gestapo. I mean, the FBI always wore suits and they dressed up like me. They didn't dress up like, SS Colonel Reichstag,
Yeah.
That's the way they were. That's what they were doing. And I never remember the FBI owning leg irons that they put on Navarro. They put leg. Do they have leg irons on the murderers, rapists, child molesters, and pedophiles that they sent back to Venezuela? That the sick judge wants to bring back? Why doesn't he take him in his house? Why don't we find out where he lives? And why don't we build a nice big thing for them there? And he can take care of them. He didn't seem to give a damn that our citizens, the J6 people, who are all American citizens, were treated like the Japanese during World War II.
Right.
He didn't say a word. If he participated in it, he was one of the bloodthirsty judges under the worst judge in the history of the country.
Right.
And now he's all upset about murderers aren't being treated fairly.
Well, yeah. What about where were these judges when these individuals were carrying out these heinous acts against American citizens? Where's the outrage for all the victims?
Where was Roberts when Biden did something extraordinary, like just opened the borders of the United States? We all knew it, and just let in more people than came in through Ellis Island. Where was Roberts then saying, "You're violating the Constitution. You're making a mockery of it"?
I think he was busy hobnobbing with a bunch of liberal justices outside of D.C. Probably.
Yeah, I would guess. Yeah, right. Making sure he would maintain the reputation of the court. But what kind of court has a reputation for ignoring the tough issues?
One that's in decline.
Yeah, I mean, it will turn out in the fullness of time that he did the same thing with the 2020 election. But
they have a lot of convenient ways to avoid issues too, and anything as a political question, anything that they don't want to touch.
Yeah, well, political question, exactly. You could say that his deportation is a political question, that it's an issue that's been confined to the two political branches of government. A political question is when the Supreme Court declines jurisdiction because it says that an issue is almost completely or almost so completely confined to the other two branches of government that the court shouldn't intervene. And they call as if it's as if they're more important. They call the other two branches of government the political branches. So that's how it becomes a political question.
The ones we vote for.
Yeah.
I have high regard for those branches.
Well, the ones that have to do with democracy, not the ones that are more like the monarchy where you're appointed. But in any event, I wrote a law review article about this on the attempt of Congress to expel Adam Clayton Powell, and I came to the conclusion that the Supreme Court couldn't intervene in that. That's something confined. The discipline of members of Congress, not if you were going to prosecute them, but the internal discipline of members of Congress, whether done fairly or not, has nothing to do with the court.
Right.
Court that's not a legal proceeding; it's a political proceeding. And believe it or not, my note and my roommate's note wrote it together was cited approvingly by Chief Justice Warren when he ruled our way, and found that the Powell prosecution was unconstitutional.
Right.
Or the Powell
when
intervention.
did you write that? When was it?
I wrote it in 1965.
To be fair, that seems like a very clear point of law, if you ask me.
Was it?
No.
It's not a clear point of law. It was not. The political question doctrine isn't as, for example, firmly established in the Constitution. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says there's a political question. You have to find it.
The general structure of the Constitution.
Yes, you have to find it from the structure of the Constitution, which is always a little weaker argument. Well,
it's implied almost, right? Like
yeah,
they
but
would write it that way just for that.
Right. But you also, I mean, that's how they created Roe against Wade. It was implied that we have a right of privacy, but we don't. So you got to be really careful about how close you are to the text. What's absolutely clearer than that is that the president can fire anybody in the executive branch, and that there is no other executive branch. So therefore, putting limits on his firing, it clearly violates not something written in the Constitution, but something that wasn't written in the Constitution. They put in the ability to regulate his hiring, and they deliberately left out the ability to regulate his firing. And they did it on purpose.
Well, policy-wise, it makes sense.
They discussed it, and they did it on purpose. So it's not written in the Constitution, but the documents that are used to interpret the Constitution make it 100% clear. The political question doctrine is very similar. It's not in the Constitution, but as you say, you can infer it from the three branches of government having different roles. But then, of course, there are times the court can interfere. So it is a debatable question. And the court also has the discretion to use it. It doesn't have to use it. And that's really what they did in 2020, but they were afraid to do it. And they used dishonest things like standing and
the question being, just to go back to the beginning of the conversation, the question being, this is the question being asked.
The question being asked is, can the president deport on his own authority people that are here clearly illegally, therefore they don't have the full rights of an American citizen, who are, in his view, acting in a way that endangers our national security?
Right.
And can the president declare emergencies when the country is in grave jeopardy, like it is when 15 to 20 million people come who we don't know?
Is an additional,
and since the president has the main power with Congress to conduct foreign policy, defend our country, and regulate immigration, the court has no role in any of that. One would say it's a political question that's left to the president and Congress to work out.
What about the question of due process?
Well, they don't have due process. They have limited due process. They don't have the same due process that you have.
Yeah, I think once it's established that they are in fact illegal immigrants, we have less of a question. But the one thing, though, that I think would make a lot of people feel a lot better about this is that we know for certain that they are illegal immigrants to start with.
But isn't it enough that the president knows that? Due process doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in court. If it's a political question, you get the like Adam Clayton Powell had his due process in the Congress. That's where they're the ones who are supposed to decide, not the courts.
Yeah.
So here,
definition of due process.
If the president is convinced that we're going to be attacked from his intelligence, he doesn't have to go to the court to get permission. He decides.
Right.
So this interference is outrageous. It really is outrageous. And when you consider they let Biden completely violate the Constitution clearly without interfering at all, it's so damn phony. Right. Or he didn't really give a damn if American citizens got due process.
Right.
They took hundreds of people and left them in jail without bail under terrible conditions of confinement. Several people committed suicide. These people didn't come into the United States illegally. They came in. They were American citizens, many of whom served their country.
Right.
Nobody cared about them.
Right.
And whatever crime they committed was certainly a lot less than rape, murder,
any of the Trenderagua
crimes, methods of gaining income.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
I think how about, what would you rather have living next to you? 4 Trenderagua people or 4 J6 people?
Yeah. I want to live. Let's do that. Let's move in. Let's have a little neighborhood, J6 neighborhood.
The J6 neighborhood, and
the safest neighborhood you'll ever go to.
I tell you what, I think Aurora, Colorado would be a lot better off if it were 20,000 J6 people, if there were that many, as opposed to 20,000 Venezuelan murderers and rapists and whatever else. But we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back and figure out what's best for America. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50%, and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely.
We're back.
Well, this is Rudy Giuliani back on America's Mayor Live, and I have been informed of something in my narrow-minded preparation where I go through all this stuff I missed. And that is our friend Michael Walls is in trouble.
Well, this being reported.
What communist reporter is making a big deal out of it?
I believe you know this gentleman. Is it Jonah Goldberg from The Atlantic?
Oh.
Yes.
Isn't The Atlantic published in Beijing? I thought they moved from Atlanta to Beijing some time ago.
That's right. So this is from Mr. Goldberg.
I don't think The Atlantic has ever written anything true about me.
Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic says that the Trump administration.
First of all, it's probably not. How about we begin with the fact that it's probably not true? So let's go on with the rest. Go ahead.
He claims that the Trump administration accidentally texted him its war plans. Quote, this is from Jeffrey Goldberg. U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. So this is from Jonah Goldberg. Let's see if we can get a report from somebody else on what happened. This is from the Washington Post. Trump officials shared war planning in unclassified chat with journalists. The Atlantic reported that its top editor, Jeffrey Goldberg, was accidentally added to a group chat where Trump's national security team plotted attacks against Yemen. Top officials in the Trump administration discussed highly sensitive military plans using an unclassified chat application that mistakenly included a journalist, the White House acknowledged Monday, a development that swiftly drew criticism from Democrats and the Washington's national security establishment. Very serious people.
Who said I was a Russian spy?
Bingo, bingo. In fact, Goldberg himself is behind a lot of these hoaxes, going back, I believe, to the Iraq War.
Who was the guy that got arrested? The FBI agent that got arrested was trying to frame it over the weekend.
That's right. That was another big story.
I saw that one. I'm reading about all these people that are getting arrested and caught for trying to frame me, but nobody vindicates me.
That's a good point, right?
What? So is this guy what's his name? Goldberg?
Is it Jeffrey Goldberg?
Jeffrey Goldberg, was he part of the Russian earmarks of Russian collusion?
Let's see if I'm sure.
He's got to be an earmark guy. He sounds like an earmark guy.
Right. I mean, that outlet. Let's see. If
when it was so obviously not Russian, you had to be like a complete traitor to think that it was.
Right. Disinformation is the story where, yes, Jeffrey Goldberg was very much a part of the Russiagate nonsense.
Oh, well, that's good. And I don't think the Atlantic got a Pulitzer Prize for it because the Atlantic really is a second-rate shit publication. But
That's exactly something
they
President
would
Trump
have to
was.
have given it back. I mean, the Times and the how can the Times and the Washington Post keep a Pulitzer Prize for an absolutely contrived, false, treasonous story?
Well, it's interesting, Mayor. Your comments.
Well, and you said that people say that I cannot believe that President Trump, if that's it, and it comes from this guy, I can't believe that the president's going to take any action against Walsh. He's doing a very good job, I think, from what I can tell.
That said that some of your
Trump's
top
reaction.
cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through signaling and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
with the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me not much of a magazine, but a magazine that's going out of business. Fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying.
You get the point. He doesn't think it's much of a magazine.
I love that. I had to play that after your similar response to you, Mayor.
It sounds like a either contrived or much exaggerated story, and if anything, just a mistake. If it happened, and to make government policy based on these corrupt publications and people who have been involved in corruption, like this guy. I mean, if you were involved in the Russian collusion story and you haven't come clean completely, you're a corrupt individual. So Trump has made it clear that the Houthis, which were part of that story, are like Hezbollah, like Hamas, like Assad, just like a placeholder for Iran, and that for a year and a half to 2 years, Biden has made Iran wealthy and interfered with any problem for Iran because Iran was able to carry out its really now futile attacks on Israel, but by other people getting destroyed. Trump has now said, we're not pro-Islamic extremist and anti-American like the Biden administration. And we know that when the Houthis attack, Iran's attacking us. We know that when Hamas attacks, Iran is behind it. We know, et cetera. Now, the Houthis have been very, very damaging. They have completely disrupted traffic through the Red Sea, which is similar, by the way, to the Panama Canal that we're worried about with China, because one of the access points to the Panama Canal from the east is through the Red Sea. You can't get to the Panama Canal if you don't go through the Red Sea. So in essence, you can cut off, and they've done a very good job of cutting that off. And it's one of the reasons why prices are high. And maybe even more in Europe than in the United States, but it would affect the United States too. They've done hundreds of attacks on shipping, on world shipping, 170 or so on American shipping. They've wounded many American soldiers and personnel. They've seriously wounded, meaning people who may not be able to use their limbs, people who may be mentally affected forever, maybe about 50 Americans, and they've killed some Americans. And they've paid no price, really, from America. The only attacks on the Houthis to try to stop them from killing us were futile, silly, stupid, symbolic attacks by Biden and the traitors who were in the White House before. Well, Trump is now attacking them, if not every day, almost every day, trying to destroy their capacity to block up the Red Sea and to attack us and to kill us. And he's saying if they continue to attack, he's going to hold Iran responsible. Well, in one way he has. He's already instituted more sanctions than in all of the Biden administration already. And also remember, there's a hidden part to this. He's enforcing the sanctions that are there. You know, of course, I hope, that Obama and Biden never enforced the sanctions, which is why Iran went from being broke when Trump left to being worth $100 billion or more just a year later or a year and a half later. Because not only did Biden send them money, lift sanctions, and lift frozen money. The frozen money is money that was frozen at the time that this dictatorship took over. And it should only be returned when this dictatorship is gone. By giving it to them, you're supporting the dictatorship. You're not just supporting the dictatorship, you're supporting the entire Islamic extremist structure of terrorism, because the biggest sponsor of terrorism is the country you're giving the money to. I do not, for the life of me, understand why this doesn't lead to a prosecution for supporting terrorism, except for the fact that we have a corrupt justice system. So Trump has said clearly the hundreds of attacks being made by Houthi, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen, who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. How Obama let Hezbollah off the hook, he doesn't understand, and how he let the Houthis off the hook, he doesn't understand. And so Hamas has, well, a representative of Iran's Quds force sits on the Houthis' Jihad Council. I mean, they even make it official. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. So it's hard to, I mean, Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria have launched 170 attacks on U.S. military bases. In January 2024, they killed 3 U.S. servicemen and injured more than 40 near the Syrian border with Jordan. The Houthis in Yemen have been allowed to run the U.S. Navy ragged, attacking U.S. warships 174 times. So what do you think? You think it's time to move from sanctions to taking out their nuclear capacity? I think it's past time to do that. Every day we don't, we risk the fact that they're going to become nuclear, and they're going to prepare better for it. We have moved, or are moving, a second carrier back to not, it's not actually in the Red Sea, but patrolling right outside the Red Sea. We have the USS Harry Truman there, and we're moving the USS Carl Vinson. And I think this is another, we're hitting the Houthis every day. They are still, well, actually, we're hitting the Houthis every day. Looks like it stopped for now, the attacks on the Red Sea. But the Houthis are making futile attacks on Israel every day. Their rockets come from so far that the nuclear defense of Israel has a much easier time dealing with them than those coming from Gaza, which are right next door. But still, I'm not sure if some of them haven't gotten through and they haven't killed people. And every one of them it's always a risk. And it does mean you have to disrupt the entire life of the Israelis. 100 people, 1,000 people have to run to an air raid shelter because a bomb is coming from these Houthi animals. So it eventually is going to lead to having to hold Iran responsible. And this idea of negotiating with Iran is futile. It's useless. It's a waste of our time. And it's getting us into Chamberlain, Obama, Biden appeasement territory. So I think Trump has now said enough about holding Iran responsible. And I think the next Houthi attack, maybe we should show Iran what we mean by holding them responsible. It is the only way to peace in the Middle East. It's the elimination of the Iranian reign of terror. They will prevent peace no matter what we do. And peace in the Middle East is crucial for the survival of Israel and maybe for the survival of Western civilization. What also would be very, very useful for the ability of our country to start operating like we used to get rid of Schumer. Now, I don't agree with the issue they want to get rid of him on, which is his actually agreeing to something he should have agreed to. His crazy left-wing, Jewish-hating friends, the people who want to see Israel destroyed, that he doesn't speak up against, want to get rid of him. See, Chuck, it never really works being a traitor to your own people. These are the people that you were seeking preferment with when they would attack Israel, when they would attack the Jewish people, when they would use anti-Semitic tropes. You would just keep quiet. You would say nothing. You'd be like the coward I've always known you are, but not everybody knew that you were a coward. Now the whole world knows. The words being used about you are traitor to your own people, spineless, no guts, slimy. And now they've also found out somehow you acquired millions. That's worth an investigation, slimeball. And now your party wants to get rid of you. Now, I agree with them for different reasons. I get rid of you because you're useless. You say you're a leader. Then you use that word. Do we have any of his clips of him pathetically defending his sorry ass?
We'll get one up, yeah. We'll get one up.
Well, I mean, there's an article by Eliza Licht about his position as a Jew. It isn't for me to judge his position as a Jew, nor will I. But I think certainly another Jewish person should have the right to do that. And she is incensed that he's written a book on anti-Semitism, since she considers him one of the reasons for the increased anti-Semitism in America today. One of the main reasons for it, because of his failure to speak out. Not only that, his failure not only to speak out, but to hide when vicious anti-Semitic words were used by his colleagues, when anti-Semitic actions were taken by the people that he supports and who support him. And now the highest elected, he's selling a book. Now he's selling a book based on his being the highest elected Jewish official in the United States. The highest elected Jewish official in the United States who sold out the Jewish people. So let's listen to a guy who I think who will go down in the history of the Jewish people as one of its most recent traitors.
And you know what their attitude is? I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or, I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, my the land and water that I own, or my employees? They hate government. Government's a barrier to people, a barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
Okay, good.
What their attitude?
That isn't the one that, what?
That's him talking about Elon Musk and Trump.
Who was he talking about?
Elon Musk and Trump, Republicans.
Yeah, but that isn't the part that I wanted. I wanted the part where, well, first of all, in March of 2024, he always looks quite contrived when he tries to act tough, because he really does look like the guy that used to get pushed around in the playground when he was a kid. And even his hand actions are the hand actions of a non-athletic, sort of uncoordinated putts.
Dweeb is the scientific term for that.
What?
Dweeb. Nerd.
I don't want to use the word that D'Amato used. Not that it was, I defended D'Amato for using it, but.
What's the word? Something that rhymes with.
Something that rhymes with another word we can't say. F-U, S-H-U, S-H-M-U.
Oh, why can't you say that?
I don't
want
know.
to say it.
I don't know. We'll have to look it up. Before we say it, we have to look it up.
Chuck Schumer is, and you've known him forever.
I know him so well, it would shock people. I also was told by 2 newspaper columnists, reporters, extremely left-wing, when I was U.S. Attorney, Associate Attorney General, that I made a terrible mistake in not allowing the Eastern District to prosecute him because I thought he was being unfairly investigated. It wasn't that he hadn't done something wrong. I thought it was too small. It was exactly the judgment that wasn't brought to bear on any of the things that were done against Trump. I still think it was the right decision, but it does show that I always felt for sure it was the right decision. For the first time, when I've heard how much money he has, I'm beginning to question it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Now that we're knowing, like, maybe...
I never thought he was financially corrupted. And maybe that he isn't. He just happened to make 40, 50, 60 million.
Like no family money to speak of?
Not at all. He was a poor guy. Came from a poor family. Irish, not poor, middle class. But remember,
not like,
but remember,
$50
they had limited salaries, government salaries, and tremendous expenses. Kids going to Ivy League schools, traveling back and forth to Washington.
Are the children pretty grounded? What are they like?
I don't know the kids that well. One worked for the Yankees.
Well, that's exciting.
I don't know the kids well. I know Iris is a remarkable woman. She's absolutely a great woman. So I feel bad, but it's about my country, not about my personal relationships. And this guy has been a menace, and he's a menace to the Jewish people. If I were Jewish, I'd be so angry at him. And please don't take this wrong. If you're Jewish, I feel like I am, and I feel like I feel personally inside my own conscience that I can be, but I won't be as vocal about it as I would be if I were Jewish. Now, if you were Italian and doing this to the Italian people, I will say nothing. In March of 2024, he pounded his fist and he demanded new elections in Israel, blaming Prime Minister Netanyahu as the obstacle to peace. If it weren't for Netanyahu, the Houthis would be perfectly constituted. Hamas would still be controlling Gaza because he advised against, they advised against even going in the first place. Hezbollah, we would still think was this major, almost undefeatable terrorist group that Israel defeated in 3 weeks. Assad would look irreplaceable. And Iran would be sitting there with this paper empire made up of bullshit. Because according to him, Netanyahu shouldn't have been reelected because Netanyahu was going to continue to carry on the war against them. He wanted his Jewish people unprotected. Then, of course, he's never, ever criticized the Squad or any of the other people for unbelievable multiple acts of anti-Semitism, statements and acts. He hides when that happens. And the press, of course, since they are totally unfair, don't seek him out as they would a Republican who would have to make a comment on it. Here's the one that really nails him, I think, completely. The House passed a law known as the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act after all of the terrible things that happened, in American universities and all over the world. It passed the House 320 to 91. That means a lot of Democrats, Trader, voted for this. He's written a book on anti-Semitism. He doesn't explain in that book why he never brought it to a vote. Why he blocked it from being brought to a vote. He's affirmatively blocked it. By the way, it's become the law in 43 countries, some of which probably are not that favorable to Israel. They just see the simple fairness of it. And 37 of our states. But Schumer, wanting to stay in good graces with the far left bosses of his party who hate the Jewish people, has blocked it. In October of 2024, Schumer sent a message that President Minouche Shafik of Colombia should just bide her time on the problems, political problems on the campus of virulent anti-Semitism, because they're really only among Republicans. So Ms. Lick comes to the conclusion the word traitor is too strong to describe Chuck because he's too much of a coward to be one. And then she points out that his book's marketing blurb is that he's the highest elected Jewish official. With a highest elected official like that, it'd be better if you didn't have a highest elected official. Now, Schumer had a number of book engagements scheduled.
Yeah.
They've all been canceled, largely because of security, they say. But actually, Ms. Lick says that she and a group had formed very, very large protests in New York and other places, and he's afraid to go even to the Upper East Side, which is 90% Democrat. So none of that anti-Semitism brought him down. It should have. What brought him down is agreeing to continue the government, which is a justifiable decision. But I'm going to tell you, there's a chance he'll go. Nobody likes him. They tolerate him because he brings the big money in. Apparently, some of it's sticking to him. And he is now, I don't know if this is the symbol. I don't know if you want to go into the 26 elections and have the Republicans say, if you vote for Senator Boobity-Dooble or candidate Boobity-Dooble, you're voting for, put him on there. You're voting for the traitor to his own people, Chuck Schumer. What do you think? The traitor to Israel, the guy who wanted to get rid of Netanyahu, the guy who interfered in the Israeli election in a much more direct way than Russia ever interfered in our elections.
Right.
The other description of him, 100 protesters rallied outside his Park Slope home, and they basically said their signs with no spine, lost spine. If found, please return to Chuck. They had a big sign up. So
well, yeah, there's a big insurgent movement behind AOC and that wing of the party to kind of move things in that direction. We'll see if there can be somewhat of.
So this is when you don't have like Biden always had a reservoir of goodwill. He always did that, Joe from Delaware, good guy.
Scranton Joe.
Even when it turned out that he was a crook, massive crook, and really not such a nice guy, it still helped him. Schumer doesn't have that. No, I'm telling you, nobody likes Chuck Schumer. Nobody. I mean, I know the Democrats in New York when they used to talk to me, and all they do is talk about him behind his back. So I think it may be over for him, because I don't think they're going to want to go into a 26 election carrying the weight of this traitor on their back.
Should we hear him?
Pardon me?
Let's hear a little bit of crying Chuck.
They want somebody else in there. What do you say about that?
Here's what I say.
In your own party saying
Yes.
that's to go.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm the best leader for the Senate. We have a lot of leaders. When you don't have a president, there's not one leader of the party. There are lots of them. We have a lot of good people. But I am the best at keep winning Senate seats. I've done it in 2005, just in 2020. No one thought we'd take back the Senate under my
This
leadership.
guy's
we
taking
took it.
credit
So
for
we now
Senate
are
wins in
executing.
Georgia.
You're not going
No,
anywhere.
we have a great. We're moving forward. Hakeem and I have a plan. Let me just say this: there's a real contrast between the parties. The Republican Party now, particularly in office, is the party of rich oligarchs who want to really screw every average American so they can get tax cuts for the rich. And we are fighting that every day. So today, we just issued a statement at 8 o'clock that
just
describes
issued
it.
a
Hakeem and
statement.
I, we have a day of action on Medicaid.
A day of
in
action.
every state, in every corner of the country.
Oh, so
Democrats are talking about they're going to Medicaid centers. They're going to people who would be deprived. And
Senator, people don't have faith in the Democrats.
well, let me say this. Look, and we're going to do this day in, day out on issues. Why are they
Days of
doing
action.
tariffs and raising your cost $2,000? It's beginning to work. Why are they taking away Fannie and Freddie and raising your housing
is this
costs
guy the
dramatically?
leader?
It's beginning to work.
not
His numbers
that
have come
good. Look at
down.
him.
If we keep
Better
at it
being
every
around
day,
long enough, I
relentless
think.
fighting and showing how they're hurting people so badly,
How does this
Trump's
guy
numbers
lead?
will get much lower. And his both popularity but also his effectiveness will decline. That, I believe that strategy will work.
May I hold it to both?
Boy, it'd be nice when he's gone. Things would be more pleasant.
How is this guy a leader, Mayor?
He's not a leader. He's a scumbag. Everybody thinks he's a scumbag, a lying weasel of a scumbag. I recognized it first in about 2014 when I called him a jerk at a sort of contrived debate at Jimmy Finkelstein's house on eve of the 4th of July. And he was saying that he knew that Biden, if it came down to it, that Obama, if it came down to it, would go to war against the Ayatollah to stop him from being nuclear. And I said, Chuck, I got up to respond, and I said, Chuck, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. You've really become a jerk. If you really believe that, there's a person in this room that, and now it's proven that, the guy.
God bless you, Mayor.
The guy was sucking the Ayatollah big time. In fact, we didn't even know then. He was sending him hundreds of millions in money. Maybe Chucky knew that. But I mean, I knew then that he sold out as a Jew when he was defending. Biden was not Biden. Obama was aggressively anti-Israel and aggressively pro-Islamic Republic of Iran. So Holman issued a statement saying that Judge James Boasberg, who wants to bring back these people, that those people were carefully checked and they are all members of the Venezuelan gang that has participated in almost a crime wave in America. And that is TDA. And every Venezuelan migrant on that flight was a TDA member based on numerous criminal investigations or intelligence report. So we got a judge who didn't really give a damn if Americans sat in a dungeon for conducting a phony or completely contrived charge of insurrection, the only insurrection ever without a gun, the only insurrection without anything burning, when in fact you can't have a left-wing protest without burning. I mean, it's just like a staple. I mean, they can be protesting the price of milk and they're going to burn. But I mean, look at the difference in the Biden was in office for 4 years. We had a lot of grievances with Biden, meaning us, the Republicans. We didn't burn anything down. They've burned down more things in a week than we've burned down in a lifetime. We don't burn things down. Republicans don't do that. That's why J6 is inconsistent. You'll see. You'll see. Wisconsin Supreme Court has become a fight over Musk. So the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which issued a absolutely crooked decision in 2020, I could explain to you the details of the decision. In fact, it was so crooked that it got reversed 2 years later, but it was too late. But it got reversed because the court The court is very, very closely split between left-wing non-lawyers and right-wing constitutional lawyers. And it was at that time 4-3, left-wing wacky crazy. And they ignored a provision of Wisconsin law that says when you file in Wisconsin an absentee ballot, it is not valid unless the envelope is preserved. I don't know of another state that does that. You also should know that the law in Wisconsin proceeds from a great deal of reluctance to allow absentee ballots. Being a progressive state in what progressive meant in the 1920s, which meant clean politics as a reaction to Tammany Hall and everything else, their view was the only real ballot is a paper ballot, like the one that Trump has now. And people should show up on one day and vote so that all the security could be concentrated and then we could have a fair election. So they reluctantly allowed some exceptions for absentee voting. So in order to do absentee voting, you have to do it in an envelope because you have to have your signature on the envelope. You know, think about it, right? There's a ballot inside, right? And in the ballot, you voted for Trump or Biden. But that ballot, once it's exposed and put in with the other ballot, shouldn't have your name on it. Otherwise, we'd know how everybody voted. Your ballot is no longer, you know. So how do they accomplish that with an absentee ballot? You put it in a outer security envelope. That security envelope has your signature. And then you put it in another envelope, which is the one you use to mail it. Now, these are all important because that security envelope is the only way we know if it's a valid ballot originally. Because that's what, in every election but 2020, you would see Republicans and Democrats pondering over in looking at the signatures. So the election official sat here, as the Republican ward captain or whatever they call it, different. I would sit here. I did this twice, way back when I was in my 20s, baby. Here, the Democrat would sit here, and they take out the ballot. They'd show they would first. The official would first make their own determination. Look at the envelope. Look at the signature. Look at the sample signature, which can either come from the voting records or from the motor vehicle records. At times, the election official makes the determination. This is too far off. Let's put it in a disputed pile. Or the Republican or Democrat disputes it. There may be a little argument, but if you insist, the election official, at least in New York, has to accede to your request. There may be some states where the election official can make a determination right on the spot. Certainly not Wisconsin. Now, if the envelope, once that's done, believe it or not, most states throw the envelopes away. In Wisconsin, you got to keep them all. And the final number has to tally. So you don't keep it with the ballot any longer, because then you would know how Joe Jones voted. But you put it in a separate pile. And then when you finish and you do your forensic accounting of it, there've got to be 5,000 absentee votes and 5,000 envelopes. If there are 1,000 envelopes missing, then 1,000 votes gets discounted from wherever they're missing from. That's the law. The Supreme Court Rule 4-3, that was the law, but it was too punitive. But the law is punitive. I've never heard of a law, except maybe if it involved torture. I mean, this is not like it isn't cruel and unusual punishment. to require the piece of paper to be there. And it goes very much to what they did, particularly considering the fact they weren't willing to give up the piece of paper itself so it could be examined. So the court was a 4-3 crooked court. It then became a Republican court, 4-3, and reversed the decision. So that for the next election, which is why maybe Trump won it, by pretty much the margin I thought he had won 2020, they had to follow that rule. And that got them all upset. So they've done everything they can to contrive this election. And now they have an extremely left-wing, way over the top, crazy, AOC-loving judge named Susan Crawford, who comes from Dane County, who is described as over-the-top leftist, much more of a politician than a judge. And she's running against a former Attorney General of the state, Brad Schumer. And they're deadlocked. And so they are running ads in Wisconsin in this race about who the judge should be in Wisconsin, about Musk. And that if Schimmel is made a judge, he's going to effectuate the Musk program for reducing waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. I hope the people of Wisconsin are smart enough to see they're being made fools of.
Well, this is going to be an interesting test here to see how the attacks play out, and how much attention or how much turnout are we going to see in this race?
Now,
who's going to be more energized?
There is one justification for going after Musk. If I just left it the way I did, which is what CNN would do, there'd be no justification for going after Musk.
Right.
But Musk did put a lot of money into this race. So, so therefore, they're saying that the judge is a puppet of Musk. And so pumped millions of dollars into groups into Republican groups that give money to Schimmel. It doesn't say whether he did it specifically for Schimmel or he did it for the Republican groups, and they're the ones that want Schimmel elected.
I'm hoping it's just a preview of what's to come in, our other elections coming up. I hope that he's going to be pumping money into all of them.
Well, yeah. Their major priority in this election, of course, is to get back to how to do crooked ballots. They won't say that. Their major priority is overturning Act 10, in which Governor Walker had passed a law that said that civil service unions could not engage in collective bargaining, which means they can't go on strike, which Ronald Reagan, of course, pretty much established for the federal government. And of course, they shouldn't go on strike. How do you go on strike against the government? Ronald Reagan said, if I don't prevent the air traffic controls, what happens when the military decides to go on strike? Suppose they decide to go on strike. And there is a provision in the U.S. Oath of Office where you promise not to. You take an oath not to strike. So Trump has, of course, come out for Schimmel. He's a little underwater in terms of the popularity of his programs. Maybe. I mean, the polls, I don't think, have changed in the sense that you got to give him about, I'd say 5 or 6 points on any one of their polls, unless you look at it very, very carefully.
And is it hard to poll something like this?
Yes, it's very hard to poll. The turnout on it's April 1st, so it's coming right up, right? 5 days. So I would say it's very hard to poll, very hard to predict turnout.
Should we be getting up there? Should we be getting the turnout machine fired up?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's important. It's important because they could affect the integrity of the election. And please don't. If you want to, if you don't want to get fired or you don't want people, you can always say, I believe the 2020 election was fair, but it wasn't. Don't ever proceed on that assumption. Otherwise, we're going to get snookered again. The thing was stolen straight out and out by the crookedest party in the history of America. The U.S. attorney in Virginia, whose name was Jessica Aber, died suddenly. She's only 43 years old. There's no suggestion of foul play. This happened in Virginia, in Northern Virginia. She just left office. She was the Biden appointee. And the only reason it's a cause of concern, of course, it's a cause of concern as a humanitarian basis. A young woman, 43 years dies. They say she had some kind of an underlying health issue, but it's not disclosed. Now, that could be, the family's wanting privacy for her health records. But she did handle two very, very big cases. She handled the case of Asif Rahman, who you probably remember when I tell you this. He pleaded guilty to leaking top secret documents about Israel's plan to strike Iran last year, requiring that the plan be put off. So he got into documents. He was a CIA analyst. Through the CIA had Bibi's plans. He got them and he gave them out and made them public. He pled guilty, and they don't say what his sentence was, and I don't remember. She also had a second case against L-View International, Inc., and these were three different schemes to transship sensitive American technology to Russia. And she convicted two people, Oleg Nyandin and Vitaly Poroshenko, of shipping over $6 million worth of these restrained goods to Russia. Now, both of those could be situations in which the characters involved in something like this might want to kill her. On the other hand, everything suggests that there's a cause of death aligned with a medical illness that she had, and we have no reason to dispute that. But we offer our condolences and our prayers to her family, and also to the assistant U.S. attorneys who work for her in the Eastern District of Virginia. A U.S. attorney usually is pretty popular among the assistant U.S. attorneys, and it sounds like at least in those two cases she was pretty darn effective. So we'll be right back after these messages, and we're going to talk about an absolutely unnecessary production of something that created pain for people that I care very, very much about, and I think you do too. And this is completely unnecessary, and I can't even figure it out. We'll be right back. Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news, even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax, channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly, where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live Soccer Time. And in soccer time, we should discuss sports. So I'm going to discuss what I mentioned on Friday. I'm going to mention one more time because I want this to get across. Barry Bonds should be let into the Hall of Fame. This is outrageous that he's not. This is not a hall of moral excellence. This isn't the Museum of Saints or the highest, most ethical characters. We have no idea what other people did. I mean, I'm not going to, I guess you can pick on Babe Ruth because his reputation is so great. Who the hell knows what Babe Ruth did? He was a wild guy. What he did to win. These guys were taking it. Yes, personal achievement too, but so many of them were taking it. I remember, it's really probably very unfair, but he's not. This guy is not a Hall of Fame candidate. Brady Anderson played second base for the Baltimore Orioles. Brady Anderson was a good second baseman and a good hitter. One year, Brady Anderson out of nowhere, I think he never had more than 20, had 50 home runs.
Right.
I couldn't figure it out until years later. I didn't understand steroids until it really heated up. And one of my very close friends and one of the people on the security detail, Bo Wagner, who we should have on the show some night.
Yeah, we got to get Bo on.
People should meet Bo. He's
got to meet Bo.
We could tell stories about the Trump. Yeah, he was with me for the entire Trump campaign in 2016. Yeah.
Oh,
he was
man,
there every night. I think only twice I had a substitute for him because Secret Service said you can only have one. We can't check out too many people. You can only have one. And I knew they'd like him because he's one of the most likable guys. And Bo, if you're listening, I saw one of your friends the other day at Mar-a-Lago. No, at the golf course. Trump wasn't there, so we got a chance to talk. Well, I want to show you something right now. And this thing appeared on Facebook, and a woman named Amy Stabile, whose father, Herman Broghammer, died on September 11th. He was in the real estate business, I believe, and he was at a meeting at the World Trade Center. And he wasn't able to get out on time, and he died. He's one of the victims of the Islamic terrorist attack on America. And you should know, because I've gotten to know very, very intimately many. I don't know her, but gotten to know many of the families, and so I'm not in any sense neutral on this subject. And I've seen plenty of things done that are insensitive and not caring about these people. And I don't get this one. She saw this she was going through Facebook and she saw this and she brought it to everyone's attention. Now, I don't even know who did this. I have no idea who did this. She reported it originally to Fox 5, which is the local Fox station in Manhattan, in New York. But look at this cartoon. That is supposedly Garfield the cat made into an airplane. Those are supposed to be strings of spaghetti or something, or strings of pasta. Like, I'm sorry, lasagna plates. They do not look like my grandmother's lasagna plates, I'll tell you that. But I don't get it. Yeah, I'll take 911 orders of lasagna. Is it, the only thing I can suggest is, I don't think anything funny about it. Maybe they're trying to say, because I 2 weeks ago at what has become Plato's Retreat, I'll tell you what that means in a minute, which is the golf course on Sundays and Saturdays. We met with a very respectable woman who has all kinds of conspiracy theories about 9/11. It was very hard for me to listen to this. And so this may be like in support of this was a contrived event or it really didn't happen. There are people who believe that the airplanes really didn't take the buildings down. There were explosives placed in the buildings because they don't believe that jet fuel can melt a building. They're wrong. They're completely wrong. Both of the airplanes that went in there had enough jet fuel to go from Boston, well, actually from New York at that point, to Los Angeles. The jet fuel melted steel. So you can't burn steel. Did you ever look at a refinery, jackass? What are they doing at a refinery? They're burning steel. You can't burn steel. Jeez, I mean, they just make these things up. And then they create a big conspiracy. Now, and it doesn't get anywhere. I don't know who did this. I mean, there are other people who say that Bush did it. Now, even Trump doesn't say that. And I don't say it because I still love Bush. I don't know if he loves me anymore, but I still love him. Well, in any event, I think it's really unfortunate. I wish they would fix it up. But when I have independent reasons why I respect people, I keep them independent. I said in August of 2004, for one reason, and there are plenty of others that I can think of, by the way, a lot of other people can't, but for one reason, this man will always be a great president to me, and it's the way he reacted after September 11th. The unfairness of saying he wasn't available was really unfair. That had to be done, and he didn't want it, and he should have been put in the air because we could not have lost the president. And people say, oh, you took over. I did not take over the country. That's complete hogwash. I did my job as mayor of New York City. I had no idea I was talking to the rest of the country. And I'm glad I kept things calm for a few hours. But I could not have done what the president of the United States did. And I could not have accomplished what I accomplished without him. He put me in charge. He put me and George Pataki in charge. And he took his femur and put it under us. No president has figured out how to do that. I mean, Trump would do that, but no Democrat president. They want to run the whole thing. Now, it's really ridiculous because presidents, Democrat can't run anything. And if you go look at Katrina, the reason Katrina went wrong is not the federal government's response. It's the two complete morons that were in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge, who hated each other. It was sort of like Cuomo and DeSantis, not DeSantis, De Blasio. DeSantis would have been a godsend if we had him. But I don't understand. Do any of my two geniuses here have a reaction to what that could mean? I think we have described it properly.
It's just provocation. I don't think it has any meaning, and that's part of what makes it what it is.
It's meant to provoke
making light of a serious thing.
So Facebook has decided it's not going to use it in their advertisements. I don't know that Facebook advertises these things, and they're not going to promote it in any way, but they are going to. Leave it there. And Etsy, who was selling these T-shirts, I'm sorry, these were T-shirts, is I think not going to sell them.
Oh, Etsy. I actually have a few things in
Five-star
my cart.
seller marketing the garments. Nellie's Nest store of Australia described itself as a place that sells silly merch for silly dudes.
Ted is so outraged he's leaving the studio.
But
right now.
apparently it realized the shirts weren't all that silly. They've been pulled off the website as of Saturday. Itzy's own policies bar items that promote, support, or or glorify hatred and violence. So I don't know exactly what Itzy's going to do about it, and Facebook. Some good news. Snow White is now no longer snow, no longer white. It's a complete flop. Not as bad as Mufasa, the Lion King, that lost him a couple $100 million. But or the Dumbo remake, which was a complete washout.
What'd they do with Mufasa? What was that?
Oh my God! Didn't you see they made it into a cartoon? And I don't know what they did to it. It looked awful. I mean, I love The Lion King. I've seen it 3 times on Broadway. It's one of the iconic things about my bringing New York back. That's the reason that Disney built the New Amsterdam Theater.
The Lion King's probably been going for a long time.
Oh
now.
yeah, and it premiered under my administration.
I saw. You know what? That's funny because when I was a little kid, I went to New York and I saw The Lion King.
Well, you saw it in the New Amsterdam Theater.
Oh,
First
yeah.
time I saw the New Amsterdam Theater, there were rats running around on my feet.
Ugh.
It was completely washed out. It was destroyed. And then in the basement where they had all of the bathrooms and the candy and all that, they had the most beautiful murals about the history of New York that you'll ever see, going back to Peter Stuyvesant. And unbelievable.
Is it preserved?
You know, now it is, yeah. Disney was reluctant to put the money in because they felt that it was all prostitutes and drug addicts and drug dealers, and even the pornographic entertainers wouldn't come and perform live there. It was too dangerous.
Oh goodness!
And this has been true since. I mean, you can go back and we'll do this sometime. I used to do it when I was mayor for political reasons or to illustrate things. Or I would go show a picture of Times Square that was taken when they did Taxi Driver in the 1970s. And you can't walk down the street without having drug dealers and prostitutes.
And it just looked dirtier too.
It looked dangerous and dirty. And then they had the live prostitution whatever shows, whatever you call them. But by the late 80s and 90s, they had all left. So the only thing you had left there were places to buy pornography, places to buy drugs, places to buy other nefarious things, and places to really go out with diseased prostitutes. And that's what I wiped out and changed it. And even though it's more dangerous than it was, it hasn't gone back, thank God.
Yeah, I think of Times Square. It's kind of.
It's okay.
It's
I mean,
above board. It's
when I was the mayor and most of
$13
Bloomberg,
for a shawarma, but
yeah, but when I was mayor and Bloomberg was mayor, you were really safe there. Now you're not really safe, but you're a lot safer than like you are in Philadelphia, for example. So it still has things to. Now, having said that, the New York mayor's race is really getting interesting. The New York Post, which I love, I never hate it. I sometimes disagree with it. The Wall Street Journal, I love and hate. The Times and I hate completely. I'm announcing my degrees of disagreement. But the New York Post has targeted Andrew Cuomo. You can tell. I know when they do. I know when they don't want somebody. And they've done it for good reason. Because like all us New Yorkers who know the Cuomos for so long, this guy's the bad seed. This is the guy that his father was in many ways a great man. His brother is a good guy. His mother is unbelievably nice woman, good woman, smart woman. Hey, everybody gets a bad seat. This guy's been a problem from the time he was a kid. If he didn't do, you can vote for Cuomo or the homo. Ed Koch sure hell believe he did. He has forever been suspected of having a bunch of thugs and bums and crooks around him. The way he did his book is completely unethical. I did a book. I followed the rules that Koch set. Never had a problem with it. And boy, they looked for everything they could do to me. That was part of what the FBI investigated. I made sure I got my own. I bought my own paper. I would use city paper. I went out and bought thousands of pieces of paper. I bought a computer for myself. Actually, the publisher gave me the computer, and I worked on off as much as possible on off hours, and since I didn't have off hours, and then when September 11 happened, and they wanted me to publish it on the anniversary of September 11, unlike Schumer, who's doing this thing about anti-Semitism and what a great Jew he is and stuff like that, and very much like Ms. Licht, who put her book off because she didn't want to take advantage. I told them I'm not publishing it on September 11. Go F yourself. I'll publish it before or after, but I'm not publishing it on September 11. My book was not about September 11. It was about leadership. I did add 2 chapters, first and last, to bookend the book about September 11, because so much of September 11 had to do with leadership. And I left out every suggestion they had for sensationalizing, lying, which is why I know that many of these books are there are authors who make a fortune with including lies in a book. And then they're not really much of the book, but they sell the book. It's a publishing trick. And Cuomo did everything illegal and unethical with this book. He actually used the people in city and state government to write it. I hired and paid my co-author, who became a very close friend, Ken Curson, and he is to this day, and a great man. But Ken did not work for the city, and he was paid out of my contract, including the residual, whatever you call them, the royalties and everything else. They had no connection to the city of New York. So that's one. The worst one are the old people that were killed. That didn't have to happen. And you can do all of the bullshitting you want, Andrew, to other people. I know exactly what happened. You're lying. You're lying because it's too much weight to take, because there really is a good question. How close were you to deliberately having these people killed? I know you well enough that I don't think you could do that. But you got involved so much in screwing it up that now you're in a group of lies trying to protect yourself. And I don't know, public office isn't for you. You're too sneaky, you're too conniving, and people really don't like you either. You're not your brother. Your brother should have been the one that went into public office. Now, he may win. In fact, it looks like he's going to win. The Post is doing everything they can to stop him. One of the candidates for mayor is a complete, absolute, hateful, bigot, anti-Semite, and lover of Hamas, running in America's Jewish city. And he is supported by Linda Sarsour, who is probably one of the biggest anti-Semites in America. And that's Zohran Mamdani. And he wants to be the next mayor. Now, Sarsour is an advocate of the anti-Israel boycott, which is intended to bankrupt Israel and destroy it. Divestment, which would completely destroy Israel. Sanctions against Israel. And she's been campaigning for Mondami for months now and raising money for him. They are both card-carrying members of the Democrat Socialists of America. Why not just say communist and cut the bullshit? So he's running for mayor and saying hateful, horrible things about the Jewish people. Hank Scheinkoff, who is one of the, in my view, one of the smartest and one of the very, very best political experts left about New York, there aren't too many left, said that he's part of the anti-Israel far left. And he sees it as a great opportunity, Mondami, to seize control of America's largest city and turn it against the Jewish people. He's raised $846,949. And now Cuomo has raised $3.67 million. But the reality is Cuomo's at 38%, Mondami's in second place at 12%.
This is him here.
So yeah, there he is. I mean, the guy.
We're not hearing sound.
I imagine he's a citizen, so we can't throw him out. But.
Oh, that's who you want to throw out, though. If there's any candidate for it.
You can see what a nice guy is.
Yikes. Yeah, he looks real friendly, like angry. I don't know.
Well, he's a terrorist, a supporter of terrorists. So this is what we got running. And then Adams is down like at 4%. And he's the most responsible choice. And I'm not saying that with, well, no, I am now. Adams is materially better than all of the left-wing anti-American pathologically narcissistic supporters of terrorism that are running for mayor. How about that? Okay? We could say that. That's for sure.
Just a little corrupt.
Well, we don't know yet.
Just a little bit.
We don't know yet. We'll have to find out. There's a mayor in New Jersey, Mayor LaPlaca, a woman. She's got a drink in her hand, and she's been arrested twice now for drunk driving. I don't know how you can do that. But the real one that gets me is the Boston mayor. I never paid much attention to Michelle Wu. I mean, she's a real nutball. She's doubling down on her sanctuary city laws and that she stands with immigrants. Well, that's fine, but what happens if they're illegal? Does the conferring of the title immigrant on you mean you can rape a woman? Does it mean that you can steal things, that you can steal cell phones? Does it mean that you can bring children into the United States and use them for human trafficking? Does it mean you can commit murder? Does it mean you can spy in the United States? There's nothing morally significant one way or the other about the title immigrant. It's like, if you have the title person, does it make you a good one or a bad one? How do we know? So why are you in favor of immigrants? You should be discerning about immigrants. And in a country that's just been overwhelmed by an uncontrolled, illegal entry, which was similar to an invasion beyond anything it's ever experienced in its long history, with a large percentage of them being criminals of necessity because there were no vetting. Isn't it time to be a little careful about the immigrants who came in, to make sure that these crime waves are taken control of? I mean, I know them in New York. I'm sure they're very similar elsewhere. Adams has gotten crime down a little. I think if it weren't for illegal immigration, he'd have crime down that much more. 60% of the crimes in Queens 1 month last year or beginning of this year were caused by illegal aliens. Take the illegal aliens away and you have a crime decline, not increase. And the Boston mayor has said she's going to defy ICE. I think if she does in an aggressive way, she should be put in prison. And let's see if she does it. No one tells Boston how to take care of our town. Not kings and not presidents who think they're kings. No, it's you who think you're a king. Because the president has limited but exclusive authority. He's not a king, but he's empowered to deal with immigration, and you're not. So you're the one that's acting like a king or a queen or whatever the hell you are. You are, from what I've observed, listening to you, Madam Wu, considerably prejudiced against this country and really stupid. It generally goes together. Now, the New York mayor's people all got together because the families of the people that allegedly Cuomo killed by putting them in the nursing home have put up a beautiful memorial to their families who were killed, and I agree with it completely, and I think it's really fine that they did this. But then I look at the candidates here, and I say to myself, are you kidding? So I don't know if I have a copy of this picture. I have it right here. So they showed up yesterday to pay tribute to the people who were allegedly killed by Cuomo. I don't know if that's going to help or hurt or how that's going to be accepted. But look, I mean, the group is pathetic. The group is absolutely pathetic. Right. Scott Stringer. I mean, he's so left and stupid and ridiculous and silly. Jessica Ramos, have no idea who the hell she is. Curtis Sliwa, who I did support last time, but would have a very, very hard time supporting this time in the things that I found out about him. Which goes to character, to do a very, very difficult job. I just don't think he possesses the character to do that job. He couldn't stand up on principle when it was important, and you only get to do that once when you're mayor. And if you can't, but he would be like the so-called Republican candidate. And then next to him is the complete enemy of the United States, Zohran Mamdani, who supports Islamic terrorism. And then Brad Lander, who is even more anti-Semitic than Schumer. What a group. Now, some group has decided to pick out the New York's worst judge because this judge let violent criminals, violent perps walk free 85% of the time. And she wouldn't allow a sex crime victim who wanted to oppose it to testify. The Queens Criminal Court judge is Wanda Wendy Lasitra. And the Queens District Attorney's Office has said she's the bane of our existence. She has no concern whatsoever for victims of crime. Of 34 violent felony cases between January and June 24, She set bail only 5 times and held no suspects in pretrial detention. She let everybody out on the street. Highest rate of all the city judges. 2 major sex crime cases where she let people out and they committed them again. She's also thought of as condescending and nasty. She's disrespectful to prosecutors. She loves defense attorneys. But when prosecutors open up their mouths, she's condescending and she's nasty. I don't know how she's the worst, though. I would say anger moron and Mirsky Persky, whose daughter became a multi-millionaire on a political fix, are the worst.
That's a competitive contest for most corrupt judge in New York.
If you're a state Supreme Court justice in one of the 4 counties, the assumption is that you sold your soul to the Democratic boss who appointed you, and you've been doing it for 140 or 50 years, and our ridiculously corrupt bar association has never done a damn thing about it. And of course, our politicians don't, because they're the people who appoint you and control you. What?
Rashawn.
Yeah, Mirsky is right. Marshy.
I'm sure there's lots of incredibly corrupt ones that we don't even hear about.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of cases getting fixed every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ukraine. Well, I mean, I don't know what Putin is doing now. I got trying to get Kursk back. I don't get these drone attacks in Ukraine. Russian forces shelled at least 22 different neighborhoods since Friday, killing or injuring about 36 people. Ukraine intercepted 100 of the drones that were fired at them, and it doesn't seem to me that Putin seems to be taking this idea of peace seriously. Not if you're continuing to kill them in this period of time when you're supposed to be thinking about broadening the ceasefire, which now just involves electrical facilities and facilities to keep the city going. Now, Trump is trying everything he can to make that more difficult. Taking over the nuclear reactor or reactors would mean to be an attack on the United States if you attack those reactors. And there is there was some damage done to the Zaporizhia power plant. So that has been a liability for Ukraine. So that's another way to try and solidify the relationship between the two countries and get it out of the just giving money thing, which, in case you haven't noticed, hasn't done very much because it's a terribly corrupt country. Ukrainians have been retreating. This has been a series of days and days of incremental gains by the Russians to put themselves in a better bargaining position. And the president has to come up with a something that will quiet down or force Putin to rethink where he is, because right now he isn't, but he makes it appear as if he's in a commanding position. So sanctions, yeah, they can do a lot. Russia's economy is very weak. Russia's economy is very fragile, and Putin and the people of Ukraine react to that pretty substantially. This is what, if you look up there, you'll see that's a drone strike in Ukraine. So you see when they hit, they can do quite a bit of damage. Now, the Ukrainians say they have reversed or stopped about 95% of them. But even one like that even one like that can be very, very difficult, and can create tremendous problems. So I think it's time for massive sanctions against Russia, and let Vladimir know it's affecting our general relationship. There, the boys. So here's a problem we know about, and well, I have a question about it. I wonder how the administration has analyzed this. The president a few weeks ago said, for good reason, because there's no easy solution to Gaza, that the Palestinians should get the hell out of Gaza, not come back there, because the Gazans should get out of Gaza, because it's not just Hamas. The whole damn population has been radicalized with the fact that the UN has been teaching them for 40 years to kill Americans, kill Jews. Israel's the little Satan, we're the big Satan. They supported the barbaric attack like 90%. You just can't put them back there. They're going to do the same thing. That makes all the sense in the world. Here's what that makes no sense. Nobody wants them. Right. So Egypt is not going to take any Gazans. Now, probably the Palestinians are not an ethnic group. Palestinians come from Syria, and they come from Jordan and Egypt largely. Probably Egypt more than Jordan. No, about equal. And then a few other places. Arafat will tell you that, but none of the liars will tell you that. But the countries they came from don't want them back because they're such terrorists. So the king of Jordan doesn't want them back because they killed his grandfather, and they destroyed Lebanon when they were there. So he figures they're going to destroy him. Sisi doesn't want them back because they come from the Muslim Brotherhood that wants to get rid of them. So where do you put them?
Well, and I'll just add, on the merits, they don't seem to be a very, highly productive people. You don't hear about all the innovation coming out of Gaza, right?
Yeah, they know how to dig tunnels.
Yeah.
If you need, they could come and maybe, but I don't want them to come to the United States. They could dig the tunnel that New York has been trying to get for 30 years.
Oh gosh!
But that's under the water. They never had to go underwater. That's a little tougher. So the Egyptians will not take the Gazans. So the recommendation, and the tanks in the Sinai, which have been put there by Egypt, which actually violate the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, but the Israelis are not treating it that way, are there to stop the Palestinians from going to Egypt.
Yeah, you got to protect your border, right?
Yeah, and if I were Sisi, you couldn't talk me into taking the Palestinians. On the other hand, he supports them.
Too bad Biden's not around. You could probably talk him into it.
Though Biden would take them. Yeah, sure. Take them for the Republican states, not for Delaware, right?
Yeah. I wonder how most of those feel about marriage equality and other progressive issues.
Oh my goodness, forget it. However, do you know that the second largest amount of military aid that we give is to Egypt, which was part of the deal that was made with Carter, Israel, and Egypt? And we could cut it off, and they'd have nothing.
Right.
Now, is Trump willing to force It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply